Christianity. Christianity doesn't have one answer for what happens after death. There are three major branches: Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant, and each one explains it differently. Catholics believe the soul is judged immediately at death and can go to heaven, hell, or purgatory. Now, what is purgatory? This place is for people who are already guaranteed heaven, but aren't spiritually ready to enter God's presence yet. They just need to be cleaned up spiritually first before they can go in. Think of it like being invited to an important event, but needing to clean yourself up before you walk in. You're already on the list, you just need preparation first. This is also why Catholics pray for the dead. Those prayers are believed to help the purification process. And importantly, purgatory doesn't last forever. Everyone in it eventually reaches heaven. Orthodox Christians believe that when a person dies, the soul just waits. It stays in that waiting state until Judgment Day, while the living pray for God's mercy on their behalf. Some Orthodox traditions describe the first 40 days after death as a kind of journey, the soul reviewing its own life, confronted with the choices it made. Some writings call this the aerial toll houses, where the soul faces its sins before the final judgment. Protestants don't believe there is a 40-day journey, or a place like purgatory, none of that. They teach that after death, the soul simply waits for the resurrection and the final judgment. It's either heaven or hell, no in-between stop. But across all three branches, they all share the same ending. Christians believe Jesus will return, the dead will be physically resurrected, and everyone will stand before God for a final judgment. In Islam, death is not the end, it's the start of a waiting period. The moment a Muslim dies, the soul enters a stage called barzakh, a barrier between this life and the next. After the person is buried, two angels called Munkar and Nakir come to the grave and question the person about their faith. They ask, "Who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet?" A true believer is able to answer and is given peace and comfort in the grave, with a view of paradise shown to them. But the person who cannot answer is faced with punishment in the grave, and a view of hell is shown to them. This isn't the final judgment, it's more like a preview. When it's finally the day of judgment, the trumpet will be blown, and the dead will be resurrected. Everyone will be brought before Allah and held accountable for what they did during their lives. The Quran says a person's entire life is weighed, literally, good deeds on one side, bad deeds on the other. Based on that judgment, plus Allah's mercy, the soul is sent to one of two final destinations. The righteous will enter Jannah, the Islamic paradise. Those who are condemned will enter Gehinnom, the Islamic hell. But the journey doesn't end at judgment. Islamic tradition also describes the Sirat, a bridge stretched over hell itself that every soul must cross to reach paradise. Picture everyone standing on one side, paradise ahead, hell directly beneath. Some cross in an instant. Others move painfully slowly, and some lose their footing entirely and fall. In Islam, the final judgment hasn't happened for anyone yet. Every soul that has ever died, from the beginning of time, is currently waiting in barzakh for that one shared day of judgment. Judaism. Unlike Christianity and Islam, Judaism doesn't have one single official answer everyone agrees on. Different Jewish groups believe different things about the afterlife. One common concept is Sheol. If a person lived a good and righteous life, there is a peaceful place where the soul can rest and be close to God. Imagine finally reaching a place where there is no pain, no struggle, and nothing left to worry about. Jewish tradition calls this Gan Eden. But what about someone who did many wrong things during their life? Jewish tradition has an answer for that too, a place called Gehinnom. It's a place where souls basically has to face what they did wrong and get cleaned up from it. Think of it less like punishment and more like scrubbing something dirty until it's clean again. It's not about making the soul suffer for no reason, it's about purifying it. Gehinnom isn't forever. For most people, it's temporary. Jewish teaching says it usually lasts around 12 months tops. After that, the soul can move on. Judaism also teaches that one day the Messiah will come and bring a time of peace and justice. The world will be restored, and the dead will be brought back to life. This is called the resurrection of the dead. In traditional Jewish belief, the body and soul will be reunited, and the righteous will live in the future world that Judaism calls Olam Haba, meaning the world to come. Zoroastrianism. This is the one most people have never even heard of, and it's fascinating, because historians believe it may have influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam's ideas about heaven, hell, and judgment. It is one of the world's oldest continuously practiced religions. When a person dies, the soul doesn't leave right away. It stays near the body for 3 days while prayers are said. On the 4th day, the journey to judgment begins, and the soul faces a very specific and vivid test. Crossing the Chinvat bridge, sometimes called the bridge of the separator. At the bridge, the soul is met by its own conscience, a figure called Dana. For a righteous soul, Dana appears as a beautiful young woman, the bridge widens, and she guides the soul safely across into paradise, a realm of light and joy in the presence of Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of Zoroastrianism, sometimes called the House of Song. For a wicked soul, Dana appears as a frightening woman. It is said the bridge narrows to the width of a blade and becomes impossible to cross. The soul falls into the House of Lies, a dark, cold realm of suffering. There's even a third possibility. If a person's good and bad deeds are perfectly balanced, the soul goes to a place that's neither joy nor punishment, just a quiet waiting state until the end of the world. Zoroastrianism teaches that one day the world will be completely renewed. The dead will be resurrected, evil will finally be defeated, and even the soul's suffering and House of Lies will eventually be purified. This final restoration is called frashakareti. At that point, death, suffering, and evil will be gone, and creation will be made completely good again. Buddhism. Buddhism has a very different idea about what happens after death. Buddhists believe that when you die, your life does not simply end, you are reborn into another existence. But there is something unusual about this. Buddhists do not believe that a soul leaves your body and enters another body. Think about one candle lighting another candle. The second flame comes from the first, but it is not the exact same flame. Buddhism uses a similar example to explain rebirth. So what determines what happens in the next life? Karma. Karma is connected to the intentional choices and actions you make. Kindness, compassion, and good actions can lead to a more favorable rebirth, while harmful actions can lead to a more difficult one. For example, Buddhism teaches that a person could be reborn as a human, an animal, a heavenly being, or even in a painful hell realm. But here's the strange part. Even if you are reborn into a wonderful life, you still have to die again. Then you can be reborn again, and again, and again. Buddhism calls this repeated cycle samsara. Think of it like being stuck on a giant wheel. You can have a good life and move to a better part of the wheel, or have a painful life and move to a worse part, but you are still stuck on the wheel. The ultimate goal of Buddhism is to get off the wheel completely. This is called nirvana. Nirvana means reaching a state where craving, hatred, and ignorance no longer control you, and the cycle of rebirth finally comes to an end. And what happens after nirvana? Buddhists do not believe you go to heaven or hell. You are not reborn into another body either. Think of it like a journey finally reaching its end. There is no next life and no next destination. Hinduism. Hinduism teaches that you have a true self called the Atman. It's your soul. When a person dies, it doesn't die with them. It just moves on to a new body. Think of changing clothes. You take off an old set of clothes and put on another. Hindu teachings use this idea to describe what happens when the body dies. The Atman leaves one body and takes another. So what happens after death? The soul continues into another life, but the next life is connected to how you lived the previous one. Good actions can lead to a better life, while harmful actions can lead to a more difficult one. Hindu belief says that after death, some souls go to a kind of heaven for a while. A peaceful place, kind of like a reward for living well. Other souls end up somewhere painful, as a consequence for living badly. But none of it lasts forever. It's like a vacation, not a permanent home. Once it's over, the soul gets born again, and the cycle starts over. Birth, death, rebirth, again and again. This cycle is called samsara. This doesn't happen forever. Hinduism teaches that there is a way to finally break free from this cycle. Through spiritual knowledge, devotion to God, meditation, and living a righteous life, a person can gradually move toward this freedom. When the soul finally becomes free from the cycle of birth and death, this is called moksha. But what happens when the soul reaches moksha? Different Hindu traditions explain it in different ways. Some believe the soul goes to live with Vishnu or Shiva, two major Hindu gods, and stays with them and is no longer forced to be reborn. I'm Owen's Bible. If this message resonated with you, hit the subscribe button. See you in the next video.